I actually had a psychiatrist tell me in an appointment just this year that he believes people are getting overdiagnosed with autism and ADHD at adults. And if you weren't diagnosed as a child, then you're not. And if you're trying to seek a diagnosis later in life, you're only doing so because you want an excuse not to do things because you want to get out of work. Hey friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Michelle, an autistic woman with 3 autistic children and wonky glasses because I sat on them yesterday. Today I wanted to talk about something that's come up in a lot of conversations I've had both online and in real life, and it's this weird, sneaky thing that happens when you're autistic, but you don't have all of the stereotypical traits that people expect. It can make you question yourself, it can make you feel like maybe you're faking it, like maybe you're not autistic enough. Yes, I'm talking about imposter syndrome, and not just in the general, I feel like a fraud kind of way, but specifically the kind that can hit autistic people who don't relate to certain common traits or experiences. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I'm building this channel as a safe space for autistic people to share our experiences, learn from each other, and just feel a little less alone out there. So today we're going to go through 10 things autistic people might not experience, and why not having them doesn't make you any less valid. So let's dive in. Number 1, you might say, I never had a sensory meltdown as a kid. This is a big one. A lot of us hear stories of autistic kids having meltdowns. We've certainly seen it. Crying, screaming, maybe even running away from overwhelming situations. But if that wasn't you, you might start thinking, well, maybe I'm not really autistic. But here's the thing. Some of us did have meltdowns, but they didn't look like what people expect. Maybe we shut down instead. Maybe we disassociated. Maybe we internalized it, went quiet, or got labeled as the shy one, or they were so well behaved, but inside we're still overwhelmed. I actually had a shutdown the other day because everything just got too much, and I did just that. I shut down, and it happens to me more as I'm getting older, but I do try and recognize when I'm getting overwhelmed, and I take the time I need to relax before it ends in a panic attack and me going non-verbal. Number 2, you might think, I actually like eye contact, or I'm okay at eye contact. This one messes with people. We're told autistic people can't make eye contact, but plenty of us can and do. Maybe we've trained ourselves to do it. Maybe it's situational, like we can do it with people we trust, but not with strangers. Or maybe it never bothered us that much to begin with. The problem isn't whether you make eye contact. It's about the expectation that all autistic people won't, and that's just way too narrow. As a child, I used to make people uncomfortable because I held eye contact for way too long, and I would stare at them intensely. I didn't know I was doing it. I thought that's what you had to do. You stared at someone when they talked to you, and that's something I still struggle with today, like knowing what is the right amount, not the right amount of eye contact. Number 3, you might think I don't stim, or I don't think I do. Some of us have super obvious stims like flapping, rocking, pacing, but others not so much. Or maybe your stims were subtle, like twirling your hair, biting your lip, or tapping your foot, and you never realized they were stims. Or maybe you repressed them because you were told that you looked too weird or it was too much. So when people say all autistic people stim, and then you think, well, I don't, that can really mess with your head. But if you're anything like me, I've been stimming in one form or another my whole life, and I didn't even realize it. All right, number 4, you might actually like socializing. Not all the time, but sometimes. So this is a tricky one. Autistic people are often described as antisocial, awkward, loners, etc. But some of us love people. Some of us are chatty, outgoing, even performative, especially if we've learned to mask. It is possible that you can love being around people and still get totally drained by it. You can crave connection and still struggle with the unwritten social rules. That doesn't cancel out your autism. It just means your social needs are complex. And that's like a lot of us. Number 5, you might think, well, I wasn't diagnosed as a kid. This one hits hard. There's this belief that autism always shows up young and always gets picked up early. So if you were a late diagnosis, especially if you're a woman or queer or a person of colour, you might feel like you've missed some kind of invisible deadline for being valid. But the truth is, our systems fail people all the time. They simply miss us because we're quiet or smart or too good at blending in. It doesn't mean that we weren't autistic, it's just that nobody noticed. I actually had a psychiatrist tell me in an appointment just this year that he believes people are getting overdiagnosed with autism and ADHD at adults. And if you weren't diagnosed as a child, then you're not. And if you're trying to seek a diagnosis later in life, you're only doing so because you want an excuse not to do things because you want to get out of work. Once I picked my mouth, my jaw, whatever, off the floor and my rage subsided, I tried to educate him on the importance of late diagnosis and the validation you have of knowing how your brain works. But he just stared at me and he wasn't taking it in, he wasn't understanding, he wasn't even trying. He had his opinion and he was sticking to it. In his eyes, I was just another lazy person looking for an excuse to get out of doing things. And my lived experience didn't mean anything. Now, the thing is, you're going to come across people like this throughout your life, probably more than you want to think, but some of them you can actually educate and have a real conversation with, and others, they have their opinion and they don't want to hear it. And I'm okay with that now. I just wish it hadn't taken me 46 years to realize that I don't have to keep explaining myself. But this appointment, it was very annoying, very invalidating, and I was very cross when I left. Number 6, you might say to yourself, I don't have obvious special interests. Well, again, that's another stereotype. You know, the kid who knows every dinosaur name or memorizes the train schedules. But not all autistic people have niche interests that look like that. Some of us just go deep into a hobby or a topic, but it's not necessarily quirky or unusual. And if your interests change often, or they're things that everyone likes, like music or cooking, or even animals, you might second guess yourself. But it's really more about the intensity than the content. I do have special interests, and when I like something, I will really go on a deep dive and I will learn as much about it as I can. Number 7, you might think, well, I didn't have speech delays. Classic autism checklist stuff, you know? But lots of us, especially those who are late diagnosed, have no speech delays at all. Some of us even spoke early, so it doesn't mean we didn't struggle with communication. We just masked it well. You can be super verbal and still not know how to communicate your needs. You can also talk nonstop like I do and still miss cues or scripts, and that's still autistic. My son was actually misdiagnosed because he could speak, and I was astounded, and I said, well, I'm autistic and I can speak, but because he was a child, she would not budge on her outdated beliefs and perceptions of autism. So we found another psychologist who confirmed, in fact, that he is autistic. And we were then able to access the therapy that he needed. I do worry, though, for those who have been denied a diagnosis based off their limited knowledge of what autism can present as. Anyway, that is a whole nother video and or rant. Number 8, you might think, well, I have empathy, sometimes too much empathy. I've heard this from a lot of people when they say, well, I'm really empathetic and I feel other people's emotions so strongly, how can I be autistic? This is really true for me and my kids. This whole idea that autistic people lack empathy is garbage. What many of us have is empathy dysregulation. We can feel others' emotions too intensely and not know what to do with it. Or we struggle with cognitive empathy, understanding why someone feels something, while being overwhelmed by emotional empathy because we're feeling it with them. So that doesn't make you less autistic, it's just another flavor. I really hope my glasses aren't distracting you. I'm trying to straighten them up as we go along. Number 9, I don't mind change. I actually like variety. Change is another one of those you must hate it or you're not autistic things. But it's not always about the concept of change. Sometimes it's more about the unexpected change or the loss of control. You can love spontaneity in some areas and still melt down when your daily schedule shifts unexpectedly. Or you might be fine with external change but feel stuck in the internal routines. It really is nuanced. I'm not too bad with change. I actually sometimes like when plans are cancelled so I can stay at home. Number 10, you might think, well, I can hold down a job, relationship, and conversation, so therefore I can't be autistic. This one stings because it comes with this idea that if you're functioning in any visible way, you must not be that autistic. I get that all the time. And it's just not fair. Functioning isn't a fixed thing, it fluctuates. You might be holding it together at work and falling apart at home. You might be great in one relationship and totally isolated in other areas. The pressure to be visibly struggling to be valid is so damaging, especially for those of us who've masked for years. I personally can't hold down a job for long. When I was younger, I think the longest I went was about a year in the one job. And then the other jobs I had, I was like a few weeks or a couple of months before I had to quit. If I had to have a job, if I was to ever have a job again, I think I'd only do like 1 to 2 days a week. And that's okay. So yeah, if you don't relate to some of these things and it's made you question yourself or it makes you feel like a fraud, I just want to say you are not. Autism doesn't look one way. It's not a checklist you either tick all the boxes for or get thrown out of the club. I hate that saying, but it really is a spectrum. But even more than that, it's a profile, a unique way your brain processes the world. Imposter syndrome thrives in rigid definitions and silence, so the more we talk about the variety of autistic experiences, including the stuff we don't go through, the more room there is for people to recognize themselves and feel seen. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you don't relate to that made you question your diagnosis or identity. I really do love hearing your stories. And if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and give it a like or share it with someone that might need to hear it. And once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.